That was Beverly Hills Cop : Axel F. This is an action comedy film directed by Mark Malloy. The movie stars Eddie Murphy, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Taylor Page, Judge Reinhold, John Ashton, Paul Reiser, Bronson Pinchot, and Kevin Bacon. Are reading the names spoilers? Because I didn't know who was in the movie. Should I beep some of those?
I don't know.
Or is it
I don't think
common
those
knowledge?
I mean,
they are spoilers, but no one cares.
Okay.
They're callbacks to previous movies.
Sure.
But I mean,
so it
at
shouldn't
no
be
point,
shocking that there's some of those people are in it, but
no, it's not like what's that Zombieland where a certain celebrity shows up at one point.
sure.
You know.
Yep. The official IMDb plot synopsis for Beverly Hills Cop : Axel F is Axel Foley returns to Beverly Hills after his daughter's life is threatened and works with old pals John Taggart and Billy Rosewood to uncover a conspiracy. What did you guys think of Beverly Hills Cop : Axel F?
So I watched the entire Beverly Hills Cop series in the past week.
So did I. So did I.
'Cause, but like for me, these movies were not nostalgia watches because I didn't see the first one until about a decade ago, and then never watched the rest of them until we decided to do this movie. I was like, okay, well, I might as well like run this series. They're pretty easy to get out there.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so I think overall, I think these are overall fun, like cop action comedy movies to varying degrees of success. And I know we're going to do a quick ranking of them, but I mean, I guess to me, these don't feel like they feel like maybe time capsules of the 80s, but not necessarily like 80s essential viewing. Maybe I'm wrong, or maybe because I don't have the nostalgia factor connected to them, but like with rewatching, especially the first one and then the second one for the first time. And I wasn't feeling like I was missing out on like, oh, I can't believe I missed out on these 80s movies. Because we're like, oh, okay, like I can see how these were popular back then. And I can see why people who maybe, watch them a ton, like maybe James, you have a different experience with that, could have a nostalgia connection to them. But it wasn't like I was watching, like a Back to the Future. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe, I've missed this movie or this series for so long or something like that. Like, and I don't think people hold Beverly Hills Cop in the same, ranking as some of our bigger 80s movies like Goonies and Back to the Future and things like that. It's not even like my favorite 80s Eddie Murphy performance.
Yeah.
Like I would take
what would that be?
Oh, what's the one where he switches with Dan Aykroyd?
Trading Places?
Yeah, Trading Places. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, that's probably my favorite Eddie Murphy movie performance. And then just like his stand-ups like Delirious and Raw in the 80s are pretty great also.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyway, having watched the original 3 and then watching Axel F, this fourth one, it definitely felt like a return to kind of the 80s format of these movies where you have, Axel's thrown into a situation in Beverly Hills. He's got, just like you said, he's got to investigate a conspiracy. He's got his group of friends with him. He's using his charm and his quick wits to kind of like talk his way through situations. So I thought this movie felt very in line with like the first 2 Beverly Hills Cops movies. I know the third one, it was sort of a disliked of the series. So this is maybe like a course correction, moving away from like what the direction they tried to do with the third one, even though that was 30 years ago. It was cool seeing people come back. Like you mentioned, Judge Reinhold is in this movie. He comes back, though he gets sidelined for most of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
He was in there for like the first third and the last third. In the middle, he's just kind of gone. We got new people like JGL, who I don't know why he was in this movie. Like you could have put anyone in that role. Like it seemed like it was kind of random to put him in there. I kind of wished they had cast Jason Segel in that role instead, just because I think Jason Segel looks like a young Judge Reinhold.
He does. He absolutely
and that
does.
And that would have been kind of like a funny, like, I don't know, like a funny meta joke of having those two in the same movie together.
I could see it.
But I mean, like I thought the comedy was pretty on point with this one. Do you remember the meter lady bit at the beginning?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
it was
had
great.
me laugh out loud.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I thought that was great. There was multiple times. I thought Eddie Murphy was on point with the comedy. Like I know we watched, was it You People last year?
Mhm.
Another Eddie Murphy comedy, which I found not funny whatsoever. This one, I was laughing. They did make a couple like remarks at the beginning, like, oh, like these days as a cop, they want social workers, or you can't do that anymore these days. And I think if this movie was trying to be an interesting legacy sequel, kind of like Top Gun Maverick, what would have been like to have Axel Foley living in 2024. Like what he's trying to do is 1980s antics. But people are like, dude, you can't be like running around shooting guns off in the street, crashing cars anymore. But that's not the movie they want to make. So this movie wasn't trying to be like, it wasn't fish out of water of him being in a new era. It was kind of the fish out of water of him being in Beverly Hills, which he's been in like 6 times now already. It seems to visit a lot. So
For the record, not the movie I want to see either. I don't want to see a movie where Axel can't be Axel because the times have changed.
You don't want to see woke Axel?
No. I think they addressed it in this one where they're like, clearly we're going to throw back to the 80s and, we're going to shoot bad guys and not, feel bad about it.
Right. Yeah.
type of thing. And I was fine with how much they hinted at the idea that we know times have changed, but we're going to follow the formula of the originals.
This movie also has a sweet helicopter stunt, and I'm a sucker for helicopter stunts.
Yeah.
So I was enjoying all that. So yeah,
Nice.
I think as a movie overall, I was enjoying myself. Didn't break anything. It wasn't groundbreaking. It again felt like a return to the form, but that's not a bad thing. What do you think, Zach?
I thought it captured a lot of the same spirit of the originals in a way that a lot of Lego sequels, I think, fail to do. A lot of them feel just a little sad. It's like bringing all these old people and propping them up and like doing the whole dog and pony show, but it's like does not have the same thing going on. And this one felt very much a piece in its sensibility. They didn't change Axel's character. He would still just walk into a room without a plan and come up with a plan as he went. They leaned, heavily on that. The action felt like old 80s action rather than like modern action. Like that first chase scene with the 4-wheelers, while being silly, like he's having this whole argument with the guy who has the plow. And then finally, when he gets in the plow, he's still only 10 feet behind the 4-wheelers. And they're moving so slow. But it felt like more like an 80s action set piece, with than maybe a more modern action set piece. So in that sense, yeah, I thought it was more successful than a lot of Lego sequels in just keeping the vibe. Now, a lot of it is like dressing up Eddie Murphy in the same clothes and
exact same wardrobe, which is weird.
Yeah. And so like that does a lot of the battle. But when you take a step back and just watch him just kind of standing there, have a conversation, it is like a guy that's put on weight, and he's years older and he's, playing the same character and everything, but he's just kind of standing there instead of, it loses a lot of the physicality of it, and it masks the fact that like 30 years have passed. In just kind of an interesting way, but overall I thought it was successful.
When I think of Eddie Murphy in the 80s, like you think about like how animated he was,
right,
with hand motions and facial expressions, and like he can still deliver the same, but you're right, he's just not moving because he's 40 years older, right? I mean, is like mid 60s now, so
yeah. So he's just kind of there and like, going through the motions a little bit, but he's giving it more than that. It's just what it did is it avoided the old man run and, like all of these things. There's this one shot where he jumps off the bleachers in the hockey game to the ground, like into a tunnel. And I watched it like 4 times because I found it so funny. He jumps from the bleachers and then they cut and then he lands and it's the kind of thing that absolutely should have been one shot. But like, it's not something they were going to have him do is jump down. And so they cut it and then he just jumps in midair and then they start it again and he lands on the ground. Very funny, like 2 cut,
Sure.
Like I bring the stunt guy in for the bleacher jump.
James?
Nice. Overall, I had fun with this, which is kind of all you, or at least all I want from a Beverly Hills Cop movie.
Yeah.
Is did I have fun watching it? None of them are particularly great from a writing perspective. It's basically just a vehicle for Eddie Murphy to riff and let his personality kind of come to the surface and be kind of the fast talking comedian that he was back then. I think, Father Time takes some of that energy away from you, probably, and it has from him for sure. But I thought he did a pretty good impression of his younger self in this movie. At least the talking part, the fast talking part. Like Zach was saying, I thought they masked the fact that he probably was 61 when they filmed this. They did that amazingly well. And they created scenarios like the scene that Kyle mentioned with the meter maid golf cart. He's getting chased in the golf cart and like the bad guys are literally chasing him down on foot.
Yeah.
So that, not only is it funny, but also we don't have to watch them try to convince us that 61-year-old Eddie Murphy can outrun dudes in their 20s who are bodyguards or whatever they were, assassins. I don't know. And so I thought they took their shots wisely for sure in the story and the visuals. Speaking of the visuals, the one thing I think they missed was the color grading on this movie. Like having watched the original 3 and then watched this one, it felt like a Netflix movie.
I thought the same thing.
They all have the same look to it. And I just wish they would break out for this special situation where like the series already exists. It's older. We don't have to make it look like everything else on Netflix. You don't necessarily have to make it look like a VHS tape from the 80s, but like just lighten up a little bit on the muted tones and HDR feeling of it, like they're trying to make the colors pop when like the originals weren't really like that. Again, if you haven't seen a Beverly Hills Cop movie since part 3 came out 30 years ago, you probably wouldn't be making the comparison, but I definitely did. Also, like there's lens flares in this movie, and I was just like, no lens flares in Beverly Hills Cop movies. You know what I mean? It's just not. It wasn't a thing back then. It doesn't have to be a thing now. So no lens flares. But the style of shooting they nailed, like the presentation of the action and stuff like that, particularly in the final shootout at the house, I thought was like aping the style of the original movies almost to a T. And so I appreciated that. I also didn't like the needle drops. Like they needle dropped 90s songs for some reason. 90s
I guess
hip hop.
Oh yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
And so if you're gonna needle drop something, just needle drop 80s songs, like the same style of songs from the original series. That way it kind of like matches. I don't know.
Which they did with like The Heat Is On opening it, and then isn't like a Pointer Sisters song, like the Neptune Dance or something like that?
Right. Well, they replayed songs from the originals.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
They don't even have to do that. Just play other songs that came out around then.
Yeah.
In this new movie. Just a suggestion, not something that ruined the movie for me, for sure. But yeah, overall, for a sequel that came out 30 years after the original, pretty close to best case scenario, I would say. I mean, this and Top Gun Maverick, which is a better Lego sequel for sure, just because I feel like Top Gun Maverick competes with today's movies.
Yes.
Whereas this, I don't think necessarily does. Now, it fits well with the originals, even though a lot of time has passed. And I think it's successful in what it's doing. And I'm not sure this category even exists anymore, right? Kind of like these lower tier action movies where really the star of the show is the main actor. I don't
Where
know.
it's an action movie starring a comedian.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I was
nowadays,
thinking,
like The Rock gets all of those. For some
right. We don't
reason.
have like Men in Black movies being made anymore.
Yeah. Although there's a Kevin Hart movie that keeps popping up called Die Hart.
I think that's a stand-up special.
Oh, it's a stand-up. Okay, good. I'm glad I haven't watched
I don't
it
think
then.
that's like an actual Kevin Hart movie.
Well, that would be
Like
great though if they made a Die Hard movie with Kevin Hart as the main guy.
Why would that be great?
I don't know. I just want to see it. Probably going to be awful.
If you want a Die Hard movie, see White House Down.
It's true.
That's Die Hard. Right
I've
there,
seen
so.
that.
Okay. Okay.
It's
I
fine.
know Channing Tatum's
There's
not
no
a
comedian at the center of that.
No.
Though.
Well, I mean, Jamie Foxx plays the president.
That is pretty
He's-
funny.
Yeah. I mean, well, Jamie Foxx, he started in comedy. Was he in Living Color, right?
Yeah, no, I agree.
Okay.
It's just
Yeah.
funny to imagine Jamie Foxx as the president and that's like presented seriously. And
He's a talented
House.
dude.
Yeah. What,
I think he can do
what
it.
are you saying, James? Why can't Jamie Foxx be the president?
I'm not saying he can't. He was great in Requiem for a Dream, but
Was
right?
he in Requiem for
No,
a
no,
Dream?
I'm thinking of
that's a
somebody
Wayans.
else.
James.
I'm mixing him up with Marlon Wayans. Is that who that's in that?
you tell me.
It's one of the Wayans. I'm getting my black comedians confused for sure.
So wait, you knew that it wasn't Wesley Snipes in this movie, right? It was Eddie Murphy.
I did know that. Yes.
Okay,
thank
good,
you.
good.
He makes a Wesley Snipes joke in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did like how they incorporated making fun of the other three movies in this movie.
Yeah.
Oh,
It
yeah.
was well
like
done, actually.
Definitely.
the reference to like 94, not your best year. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I liked that they had references to the originals, and you could have like vague memories. I have strong memories just because I recently rewatched them. Zach, when's the last time you saw the originals?
Maybe 10 years ago.
Okay.
Okay.
Was there enough there for you to not be annoyed by the references to movies that you probably don't remember the details of?
Yeah, it was fine.
Cool. I also really liked it as a reunion piece. Like they had everybody in there that I would want in this movie. For better or for worse, they were in there. And I think they each kind of had an opportunity to shine. Maybe what's his name? Balki Bartakamus.
Bronson Pinchot.
Bronson
Serge.
Pinchot probably got the shortest straw of the returning cast members. Yes.
Okay, so I don't think Sarah should have been in this movie. I understand, like, obviously he's a classic cameo, whatever, like big
Sure.
part from the first couple movies. But like in the 1980s, you know, gay stereotype characters, that was fitting for that kind of comedy, those movies back then.
Mhm.
2024, you know, let's bring back like the straight guy playing the gay stereotype. I was like, oh, okay, maybe we don't have to go back to that well.
Well, Kyle was offended.
Oh no, I wasn't offended. It just felt like that part had not aged well. Like seeing everyone else back, I was like, oh, yeah, this feels good to get the band all together.
I thought
But
they
like
did it well.
That specific character felt like, ooh, that character feels more of that era. I don't know if we need to bring that character back. I like Bronson Pinchot. I like his interaction with Eddie Murphy in the first movie. I think they have a great like improv conversation about the price of art.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying overall, like maybe how that character's played is just, we should retire that.
I thought they toned it down for this one quite a bit. Probably for those reasons. And I don't know, maybe I just miss Bronson. I need him. I need more
just want my
Pinchot.
woke Axel Foley movie.
You really do. You
Wasn't
really
woke
do.
enough. No, I don't.
No. Yeah. Overall, I enjoyed it. Also, there's a nitpick, but the first three movies have a pretty sweet, plain Jane, Times New Roman font throughout it. Why'd they have to change the font in this one? In the
I
titles?
did not notice at all.
That
They
is a
modernized
nitpick.
the font, and I was like,
Oh,
"What are we doing here? Just why?"
are you talking like the Beverly Hills Cop font at the very beginning?
And like the every actor credit that comes up in the intro and stuff like that,
okay.
they were all just like very plain in all three of the originals, and then in this one they used a modern, tall sans serif font.
I did not notice that whatsoever.
Well, I noticed it, and it was they had to earn me back basically because I was right at the beginning, but they managed to pull it off.
I did miss his boss, the Detroit police chief from the first couple of movies.
Mm-hmm.
I know the actor's dead, so obviously he was not gonna come back. But like
Sure.
he, especially in the first movie, he's a great stereotype of like the takes no crap police chief who like comes in screaming at Foley right away.
Sure.
Yeah.
So he's a fun character. Yeah.
There was a scene in I meant to look this up, but I didn't have time, when they're at the golf course and they steal a golf cart.
Oh yeah, that's who you're
I
thinking.
know
is.
that actor. What's
It's
that?
Shooter McGavin from Happy Gilmore. It's the same guy.
Right.
Yeah, I
but
can't
he
think of
wasn't
his
in the
name.
originals, right?
No.
That's not like a
No.
cameo or anything. It's just a weird place to put an actor from back then. Like they could have gotten anybody, and they got somebody who's very recognizable from when the original films came out, even if he wasn't in them.
Well, you probably will forget this, but he's also in Requiem for a Dream. But I know you have trouble remembering who's in that movie. So
Yeah. Wow, they got a lot of people from that movie in this one.
no, they got one.
He's got a pretty rough looking mugshot.
Shooter McGavin.
Oh, was he arrested?
Yeah, for drunk driving.
Him and Justin Timberlake.
No, Justin Timberlake looks fine.
Right, but they were both
Shooter
arrested
McGavin's.
for
That's
driving
true.
under the influence.
Yeah. What's
That's
Shooter
true.
McGavin's actual name? The actor?
Christopher McDonald.
Yeah, that
Oh,
sounds
yeah.
right. Okay.
He was in a lot, right? Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
His filmography.
He's one of those guys.
Throw some
Especially
up.
like in like the 90s. Yeah.
What's his
yeah.
biggest
What are his
movie?
big ones besides Happy Gilmore and Requiem?
I think Happy Gilmore is probably his biggest one, the one he's
Yeah.
actually known for. But do you
Like
want to
what-
know some of the other films that he was in?
Mhm.
Yes, please.
I would love to tell you.
He wasn't there.
No, I just want to build the suspense a little bit. Did you know he was in Thelma and Louise?
No.
I did not
Oh.
know that.
I thought that was Brad Pitt.
Did you know he was in Quiz Show?
I did know that. I think he plays the host of the quiz show.
Well, keep thinking that. So many. He was in Mad Money, of course.
Sure.
Of course. Yeah.
The House Bunny.
Of course. That was funny. Classic.
Yeah. Among others.
How did you guys
Okay.
feel about
The Iron
giving
Giant.
Ooh, Iron Giant. That's a good one.
Oh,
How did you-
I remember him being in that. Yeah.
How did you guys feel about them adding an element to Axel Foley's backstory with the daughter and having him kind of learn something over the course of the movie? Because that is not what happens in the first three. Like the
No.
first three, he just kind of comes in and other people have those types of problems. They're not main storylines. They're just jokes, basically. In this one, they were like, he's got a daughter and the daughter's estranged. And there was not enough to be annoying, but a lot of like, oh, you were a bad dad and blah, blah, blah. And it was like, okay, so by the end of the movie, he's going to prove that he's a good dad, or I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah.
It was a
well,
new element to this series anyway.
So I watched the third one like 2 nights ago.
Mhm.
And I don't remember there being any reference to having a family whatsoever in the third one.
Mm.
And that takes place 30 years before this movie.
Mhm.
And they mentioned that she's 32 years old. So I was like, okay, so we created this backstory that he has a daughter and a family and everything.
I guess.
So yeah, so I guess to me it felt shoehorned. Like we have to give an emotional stake.
Mhm.
I guess all the movies do have an emotional stake. Where the first one, it's his friend, he's going to investigate, and the second one, it's Ronnie Cox, the detective over in Beverly Hills. The third one, it's his police deputy or his chief of
Mhm.
police in Detroit. So I guess they wanted to give it an emotional stake, but they could have just had Judge Reinhold. I mean, that was the emotional stake right there. I don't know why they then had to have this other character.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I was fine with it, but I did note that it was different compared
Yeah.
to the other entries. Like they just never touched his backstory pretty much, or whatever's going on in Detroit. He was just like a single detective
Right, yeah.
with no attachment.
It did give me some good jokes where he kept saying to JGL, "Have you had intercourse with my daughter?"
Yeah.
Like multiple times, and I just thought that made me laugh. Just the uncomfortableness of that whole line of questioning.
Thoughts on Kevin Bacon? Good addition or kind of distracting?
Good addition. Also, he's looking great.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's no Judge
For his
Reinhold, that's
age.
for sure.
My goodness.
Yeah, I think good addition, especially because he is like an 80s face also.
Yeah.
He fits into this movie. Yeah.
Exactly.
He's age appropriate.
Yeah.
For sure.
It's pretty obvious who he is in this movie. Like, there's no mystery.
Hey, as soon as you see him, it's like,
Yeah, right away
That
you're
is-
like, well, I know who you are in this movie.
yeah,
So,
for sure.
yeah.
There's no hiding it.
But these movies aren't about like their plots and their
Right.
like there is a mystery, but it's never quite. As an audience member, you're never like, oh, there's no reveals in these movies.
I found this plot to be fairly boring and overly complicated.
Yeah. I would say from watching the other movies, most of the plots are fairly boring and overly complicated. It's the comedy that keeps these movies going. And that's why the third one is so bad, because there is no comedy. It's just an action movie of a boring, overcomplicated plot. So
I think at that point, Eddie Murphy was trying to be taken a little more seriously. He was trying to shake kind of the young.
Oh, he's trying to be like, I'm a serious actor now.
Not necessarily serious actor. He just didn't want to be the guy who was on stage talking into a mic that they're now putting in movies. You know
I
what I mean?
see,
Like he
yeah.
wanted to be an action star, whereas before he was a comedian in an action film. And then part 3, he was like, no, I'm an action star now. Which, by the way, the gondola scene
Oh,
in part
awesome.
3 is the best action sequence of any of these movies.
yeah. Like I was watching that and they got the guy, like, obviously it's a stuntman. He's jumping from gondola to gondola. I'm like, I think he's just doing that. Like, I don't think there's any rope or anything up there. Like,
I mean, back then, I don't think they painted wires out. So I don't know how they did it other than literally having him jump it.
I really think they're like, all right, man, you're going to jump from this gondola to that gondola. Like, okay, I can do that. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, I agree. It is the best action scene of these 4 movies.
Mm-hmm.
Zach, you remember that at all? I know it's been a decade.
No.
Okay, go to YouTube and just like Google Beverly Hills Cop 3 gondola scene. I will say, like, when it's the wide shot of the stuntman, it looks really good. And when it's the close up of Eddie Murphy on a green screen with like kids screaming, I feel like I'm watching a Superman movie from the 70s. So like it's whiplashy and like, this is super cool. This is super cheesy. So,
Oh, also, we should talk about the helicopter scene in Axel F. It clearly felt mostly practical,
yes, I
but
agree.
also very dangerous, if that's true.
Well, I mean,
So I don't know.
like that helicopter is flying very low to the ground.
Right.
I assume it was a real helicopter being piloted. I mean, I guess it could have been on a crane, but I got the impression that it was an actual helicopter being piloted. I did watch at the very end, it crashes into the golf course.
Mm-hmm.
And at first I was like, oh, they crashed a helicopter. And I watched a couple times like, I think that's CGI. I don't think they actually crashed a helicopter.
The crash was definitely CGI.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At first it looked real because
Right.
everything else looks so real too. And they did the old Terminator 2. They didn't go under the overpass, but they did the quick dive over the overpass. So
Sure.
that was cool to see that.
That was the other
But yeah,
thing, too. If you didn't know how to fly a helicopter, would the thing immediately go down?
Yeah.
Like, why was he having problems getting it to go up?
Well,
Like,
'cause
I
think-
could see having problems getting it to go left or right. But
So
like,
I've never flown a helicopter,
right.
but I don't think it's just a joystick. I believe there's also rudders and pedals. I think it's a very complicated machine to fly, like, an airplane would be.
Uh-huh.
So I don't think he can fly a helicopter. He was a former helicopter pilot,
Mhm.
right? So it's not that he doesn't know how to fly. I think he's just is uncomfortable. He hasn't been in there for a long time, so he was getting his air legs back, his pilot wings back.
Yeah, and and a helicopter I think would hover, right? If you don't do anything.
Why
It'll
would
just-
it go down to the ground?
Well, because I think you can nose down. Like I'm pretty sure on
Yeah,
helicopters.
you can definitely nose down.
Yeah, you have a joystick, and your joystick's giving you like up, down, and then
Mhm.
maybe strafing left and right.
But he never went
Um,
up. He only went down.
I assume I don't know. I'm assuming on a helicopter there's either a button or a way you can adjust the rotor to either have you rise or fall, depending on what you want it to do.
I would assume they're foot
But-
pedals like in a plane.
Yeah. But there's also might be foot pedals for rudder for like rotation, because I don't think the joystick will give you rotation. I think I've never flown a helicopter, so I don't know what I'm talking about.
The joystick has lots of range of motion.
Yeah, but I really think that would be, again, nose down, nose up, and then strafe left and right. I don't know if the joystick, I don't know. I've never flown helicopters. I don't know.
I also have
From
never
playing
flown a
video
helicopter.
games, I can tell you what it does do.
Video games.
Do you know my wife for my birthday bought me a helicopter lesson?
Yeah?
I just
Have you
haven't had a
taken it?
chance to do it yet. No, but
Oh.
a 2-hour in the air lesson.
Zach,
Should do it.
you need to tell us how hard it is to fly a helicopter.
Happily.
And then let me know left and right. Is that rotation or is that strafe? I really want to know. Because I assume on one helicopter, it's the same for all helicopters.
And do you immediately go down when you do?
I don't think you do.
The wrong
In
thing.
fact, even if your engine's cut off, you don't drop like a rock.
Right.
And a helicopter?
Yeah.
What do you mean? Yes, you do. You lose rotate. I mean, once you lose rotation of that propeller, that's the only thing keeping you up. It's not like a plane where you're gliding.
Right. But if the propeller's going and you're not touching anything, you just stay where you are.
No. Well,
No.
what I'm saying
Friction
is
will slow the propeller down. What
It
are you guys
will.
saying?
Okay,
I'm saying
Al,
like the motor is
No.
is moving the propeller, but you're not giving it any gas. You're staying it where it's at.
No, but
You would just
Zach
stay.
is saying if you lose the motor.
Okay,
Oh,
so let me talk.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
What I'm saying is if your engine's cut out in a helicopter, the rotor doesn't immediately stop, and there
Yeah.
are maneuvers that you make to auto rotate down. So you can safely land a helicopter even if the engines have cut out.
If you know what you're doing.
Right. Obviously, yeah, you're trained for that. But you don't just drop like a rock, is what I'm saying. You can safely pilot it down even with the engines off.
That's why in movies they don't aim for the rotor; they aim for the tail rotor. Once you lose the tail rotor, then you got that
Oh, then
uncontrollable
it's
spin.
yeah, for
You got
sure.
a little Black Hawk Down situation right there.
I just talked to a Black Hawk pilot a couple weeks ago
Okay,
through work, and he was in Desert Storm, and his helicopter was shot down.
was he in Black Hawk Down?
No, he wasn't, but he flew the same
Okay,
helicopter.
that was
system.
Mogadishu. That was Somalia.
No, that was
wasn't
Mogadishu.
Desert Storm.
But
Yeah,
this is in
okay.
Desert Storm. His
Okay.
Black Hawk was shot down, and I tried to find this online, and it's nowhere online. And
You think-
so he said the passenger, they had a non-military passenger on the aircraft. He was killed in the crash. And I asked him who it was, and he said, he can't tell me.
So
And then there's no evidence of this like crash at all online.
do you think he's lying, or
No.
do you think was in some like not shady, but some not undercover is not the right word, whatever,
Classified.
secret, classified. That's the word. Thank you.
Yes,
Okay.
for sure.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
I really wanted to know details.
I just remembered that one of my jujitsu friends, I don't know if he's a helicopter pilot, but he works on a helicopter Black Hawk team. So I'll ask him, hey, what does the joystick do?
That's what you're going to ask him?
Yeah, for sure.
He's like, Google it, man.
Yeah.
Well, I've never piloted a helicopter and know nothing
that hard
about
to
them,
believe.
but I've seen them fly.
Oh, good.
And so I feel like I know good helicopter piloting when I see it clearly.
I think you would
see
be
it
able to
here.
tell good versus mediocre helicopter piloting. I think that's a doable thing.
Have you guys ever been in a helicopter?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I've shot a rhino
Okay.
from a helicopter.
What?
You killed a rhino?
You went
No.
hunting from a helicopter? No,
I would
okay.
never do that.
Oh,
I would
no.
never
you
do
shot-
that.
okay,
I
shot
see.
with a
the camera.
camera.
Yeah,
With the camera.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I was going to say, you are like the most anti-kill things person I know. So I would be shocked if you killed a rhino.
No,
Yeah.
Zach's mantra is kill there, not here.
No, yeah. I've shot a rhino from a helicopter. Yeah, I love it's awesome.
I went on one of those like bubble helicopters from the MASH, opening.
Very cool.
Sure.
Yep. And it was like a tour of like Wisconsin Dells. So,
Now that
Nice.
feels unsafe for some reason.
I was not comfortable in the helicopter whatsoever. I was like, this feels, I was also like 9 years old, but this does not feel like I'm in a safe. And you're in a bubble. So like you can, obviously, which is great. You
There's
can
like
see everything.
nothing, right, blocking
You're
you.
you're in a piece of plastic essentially. Yeah.
Right.
With like, a frame. Yeah. So it was cool though.
I would not be interested in that. I'd go up in a regular helicopter if given the free opportunity to do that. But
What's a regular helicopter?
a non-bubble one.
Like a Black Hawk, a Huey, or just like one of those like traveling, like a med flight helicopter?
All of
style?
that
Any of those?
sounds-
Okay.
Great.
Okay.
Yeah. A modern helicopter.
Black Hawks are huge.
Yeah, and sometimes they take the doors off.
Honestly, the bigger the better. I'm fine with.
Oh, you want like a Chinook then? You want one of those like 2-prop helicopters?
Sure. The less it feels like a helicopter, the more I'm gonna be excited to be on it.
Do you want to come on my lesson and just be a passenger while I'm flying it?
Yeah, you're gonna be a passenger.
Is that allowed without paying?
I'm just saying, don't do that. That sounds risky.
Oh, okay. I would.
Oh,
do
you'll
that.
trust yourself, Zach, in the helicopter?
There's going to be an
Yeah.
instructor there. It's not like they're just letting him take a helicopter up.
That'd be awesome, though. Do you know I've landed a plane?
I think you've told me that.
I did know that, yes.
Yeah.
I've flown a plane. I've lined it up for landing. I have not actually landed the plane.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah,
like,
no.
you've flown a plane. That's not that crazy. Or you've flown in a plane. It's not that crazy
I've
nowadays.
flown a plane.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. No.
I wish they
I was
had
at-
continued the joke from Beverly Hills Cop 3 where they just had like random cameos from other people, other filmmakers or people related to film.
Zach, do you
Remember
remember
that?
that George Lucas is in Beverly Hills Cop 3?
Yeah, George
No, I
Lucas
don't
is in
remember
it.
that.
George
He's gonna
Lucas
get
is
on
in
the-
it.
He's going to get on the gondola that Axel Foley then gets on.
Oh, that's funny.
And George Lucas is like, come on, man. And then walks away. I was like, what the hell?
Ray Harryhausen is in it.
Oh, he is?
Briefly, yeah.
Okay.
The guy who directed Gremlins, that I'm forgetting.
Joe
his
Dante?
name. Joe Dante is in it.
Okay.
There's others too that I'm just not remembering. Those are the ones that I remember. Just because.
Is that because John Landis directed the third one? So he probably called his buddies up and was like, hey, want to be in my movie?
I think that was the story. Yeah, generally.
I kind of like, even though I don't care for the third one, I like that each of those original 3 have a different director,
Mhm.
and each one feels different because of that. Like especially the second one with the Tony Scott director, being directing it. Like the colors are very 80s. There's a ton of gunplay in that second one, and you're like, yeah, I'm watching a Tony Scott film. I totally understand that right now.
I was a little worried about this one because it was the director Mark Malloy really has not done much from a feature film perspective. Lots of commercials and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And a Quibi series. But I think he did a good job of impersonating the original minus the Netflixification of the visuals. But luckily the structure was there, so the visuals, they annoyed me, but it's fine.
He's our next J.J. Abrams.
I hope not. I kind of felt like we moved past that already, and then there it was on the screen.
Yep. Yeah.
Every
Right.
car that drove by, big lens flare right in my face. Even J.J. Abrams has stopped doing that.
Does he even direct movies anymore? I mean, besides the Skywalker one he did?
He did the Marvel. Didn't he do some Marvel thingies? Some
Last
am
one I
I
can think is Rise of Skywalker.
thinking. Oh, right. Star Wars. That's what it was.
Star Wars, yeah.
He did Star Trek and then Star Wars. There were lots of lens flares in Star Trek, but
Yes.
I don't remember there being lens flares in Star Wars.
I don't remember. I don't remember a lot of Rise of Skywalker.
I've only seen it once.
You should watch it again for the lens flare.
It's the only Star Wars movie I've only seen once. I think that says something.
What about Solo? Is that a Star Wars movie? Or you're talking like the original 9?
No, I mean like any
Skywalker
theatrically
Saga.
released Star Wars movie I've seen multiple times except
Okay.
that one.
Okay.
I liked Solo. Have you seen Solo?
Yeah, it was fine.
I like Solo. I'm not going to
gonna
rewatch
watch
it
it
over
again.
and over.
No.
but I
Well,
watched
you
it.
did rewatch it.
I watched it twice and I'll watch it again.
Okay.
How dare you
I-
insinuate I won't?
I have no need to watch Solo.
Oh, you've never
Again.
seen it?
You're lost.
No, I've seen
Okay.
it. I just don't want to see it again. Yeah.
It's
Saw it
fun.
once. It was fine. Yeah.
Super fun. I wish they would make more of those. Just origin films of the original characters. I'm not
Nah.
joking. I would watch those.
We got
Although at
3 of
this
them on
point, I
Darth
think they're
Vader.
gun shy about making anything that's going to hit a movie theater with the name Star Wars on it.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else for Beverly Hills Cop : Axel F? All right. Let's letterbox it. What are you guys going to give Beverly Hills Cop :
Big-
Axel F?
Big solid 3 stars.
It's 3 stars for me, too.
3 stars all around. Not great, but not bad either.
Not bad.
Before we get out of here, we're also going to quick rank the entire Beverly Hills Cop series. So this is very serious.
Mm-hmm. I watched them all in a week
just for this
podcast. There was movies I was not watching. It's because I had to watch Beverly Hills Cop 3
Sure.
for this podcast. So.
Yeah. I'll go first. We'll just kind of round robin this a little bit. I clicked off of it. Here we go. My number 4.
Need to switch it down?
Beverly Hills Cop 2. I like that one the least. That being said, I don't dislike Beverly Hills Cop 2.
Okay.
I just probably have seen it the least and I don't know. It felt like an extension of the original film as opposed to its own thing. Then I would put Beverly Hills Cop : Axel F at number 3. Not bad. Number 2, Beverly Hills Cop 3. I know people don't like this movie, but I like it. I think it's interesting, and it's got the gondola scene, and it's probably got more DNA with Axel F than kind of the original movies, just because it's not as jokey. Axel F exists somewhere between Beverly Hills Cop 3 and 1 and 2 on the jokey meter.
For sure.
And then number 1, of course, the classic Beverly Hills Cop. Also, before we move on to you guys, to answer Kyle's question in the opening, my experience with Beverly Hills Cop is that it was the R-rated comedy that I wasn't allowed to watch because I wasn't allowed to watch any R-rated movies. And so Eddie Murphy himself was the dirty comedian I wasn't supposed to be watching. Mm-hmm. And then I remember probably before I hit double digits in age, I watched it on HBO at a friend's house or something like that. One of the original, probably the first one, I imagine. And I mean, short of some 80s violence and a bunch of F words, I mean, these movies are pretty harmless in the big picture of what harm a movie can do to a young mind, I would say. And so, that was my experience with them. And then when I was a teenager, I think I bought the whole series on VHS and watched 1, 2, and 3 back to back and was like, these are fun. I like it. What are you guys going to rank the movies? Let's start with Zach.
My least favorite is probably Axel F, Beverly Hills Cop 4. And then the other 3 kind of run together for me. I looked on Letterboxd. They all have a 3.5 stars from me.
So that was no help.
So I will go with the controversial rating of my third favorite is number 3. My second favorite is number 2. And my first favorite Beverly Hills Cop movie is Beverly Hills Cop.
Slow down, Zach.
Nice.
Wow. Shocking. My number 4 is number 3. I like the gondola scene. I like that this is set in an amusement park.
Mm-hmm.
That's about it. It's not funny. The plot's not very good, and the action's not very exciting. So,
except for the gondola scene, that scene's amazing.
Except for the gondola scene. So I just go on YouTube and find the gondola scene, and that's all you really need.
But I just watched this gondola scene as we were talking. It's not that exciting.
Okay, maybe
you need to rewatch Beverly Hills Cop and Beverly Hills Cop 2 because that is the height of action compared to those two.
All right. You know where he jumps and like catches it with one arm and it's kind of like dangling?
Yeah.
The stunt double did that on the first take.
Nice.
With no wires?
Because he
there
had
were
to do it on the
wires.
first take.
They had wires?
Second take.
They had wires.
I'm sure they had wires.
And
I thought maybe they had an airbag in case he missed or something.
They weren't running like its normal rotation. They would put sandbags in some of them to like weigh it down and that would make it like spin with gravity. So they could have a little bit more control about the spin.
Interesting.
Movie magic. Yeah. John Landis doesn't mess around. He'll make a bad movie.
Yeah. And 4 stunt doubles died. No, I'm just kidding.
That is not a joke to make about a John Landis movie, Zach.
Oh. Yeah. Too soon.
That's a good point.
Speaking of helicopters and John Landis.
If you watch the end of Beverly Hills Cop 3 on the VHS, they have the outtakes of those stunt doubles dying at the very end. So,
wow, that's awful.
Just keep that
just keep digging in the grave.
Yep,
Kyle.
No problem. All right. Anyway, so number 4 is number 3. Number 3 is number 4. And then this was tough because I liked number 1, and I think I liked number 2 just as much. Like I was having just a good time with number 2. They're different movies. So I think I'm being non-controversial and go 2-1, as my order. But I like them both. So
Could you summarize the plot of 1, 2, and 3 in like a sentence each?
Yeah, in the first one, his friend was killed in Beverly Hills, so he's investigating
The murder
of his friend. In the second one, Ronnie Cox, who is the lieutenant from the first one, is shot but not killed. So he's investigating what kind of business Ronnie Cox was looking into. That's got Brigitte, the tall blonde
Brigitte Nielsen.
model. Brigitte Nielsen, thank you, with sweet guns. Yep. And then in number 3, his chief is killed during a drug bust.
Mhm.
And he follows the killer back to Beverly Hills at this amusement park.
Okay.
Yep.
The bulk of the movie is at an amusement park, which is the big difference, I would say.
Right. Yes.
There's less like riding around the city and like going into strip clubs and, all the cliched Beverly Hills Cop places to go.
Yeah, Axel F did not have a strip club, and I was kind of a little sad by that. Just because that's like a staple of all those movies is he's bringing people to strip clubs. Yeah.
Yep.
They even mentioned, they make a joke about it of like, oh, has he taken you to a strip club yet? And like that could have been a funny moment of like him and JGL at the strip club and JGL being very uncomfortable being there.
I mean, it's a whole movie about him reconnecting with his daughter, so I'm not sure how they would work that in.
So you want to see him take his daughter to the strip club?
No,
James?
I'm just saying like how, I don't know. I mean, it might be a good joke to be like, Dad, these girls are my age.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's weird. A dude in his 60s. I think it's weird, any dude going into a strip club.
Yeah, I think
But
they're weird in general.
a guy in his 60s, I don't know.